Welcome everyone to this week's Founder Chat. My name is Melanie Yoon and I'm one of the co-founders and managing directors at Volition, where we build connectivity and capacity and knowledge in global startup ecosystems. So I'm joining you from Montreal in Canada. We have a team in Vancouver. We have operations across Canada, the US, and Europe and beyond. And we've been doing these Founder Chats for the last, I guess, year and a bit now, since April, I think, 2020, and I've had the opportunity to chat with some incredible founders in our network, and I'm very excited to introduce to you today Christina Morrow, who is the founder of Wicked Rose. And I know that you've just had, or there's a bit of a story between the recent shift to this Wicked Rose brand, so I know we're going to dig into that a little bit more. You were Bombshell Boxing previously, so if anyone's come to our pitch or has heard about Bombshell Boxing, this is now Wicked Rose, and very excited to to see you. And I see correlations. Hi there. Really excited to have you joining us here today. Awesome. Okay, so if you haven't been to one of our founder chats before, essentially we have the next 30 minutes to get to know more about Christina, get to know more about Wicked Rose, about the origin story, what the entrepreneur journey's been like, any tips that Christina might have for us here today, and all that good stuff. So feel free to say hello in the chat, and thank you to those who already are doing so. Feel free to ask questions. It doesn't just have to be me asking questions. Whether you're here live with us right now or you're joining us on IGTV or YouTube later, feel free to jump in the chat. So I would like to introduce you to Christina. So essentially Wicked Rose is a company specializing in Canadian-made activewear for women in martial arts. And we met, I think it was actually a little while ago. I feel like I've known you for a long time, just like going back and forth, you know, and like learning a little bit here and there.
Event, like before I even had I had an idea and I had nothing else. Like I didn't even have a website. I had no product. I was like,
yeah,
this idea, please let me pitch it.
Yes. Yeah, it was really exciting. So yeah, exactly. And we've just been trying to find ways to work together in many different ways. And I was so happy to have you as part of the BC Women's Showcase recently, and excited to be here and able to share Wicked Rose with more of the world. So without further ado, I'm going to stop talking and pass the mic to you if you want to just do a brief introduction about who you are, but also how that relates to Wicked Rose, and we can start digging into that origin story of your company.
Yeah, definitely. So my name is Christina. I founded Wicked Rose. We create activewear designed specifically for women in martial arts. I've been doing Muay Thai for the last like 3.5 years. I just graduated from UBC fairly recently. And I just realized in March 2020, right before the world blew up for the pandemic, that there were no clothing brands specifically for women in the space. And women are 35% of the people in martial arts gyms, which is just crazy that nobody was serving them. And so I realized that it was something that I could potentially do.
Yeah. So I remember reading a bit about this and about how so this is not my world. I know a little bit through people I know who are in the space, but the clothing was all like baggy. There wasn't like, talk us through some of the pain points of the women that you had started to talk to, because I assume you noticed this and then maybe you talked to others and who then said, hey, you know what, I'm having this problem too. So let's talk us through a little bit of that.
Yeah. So I definitely, when I first had the idea, I started talking to my friends, especially who were in jiu-jitsu, and asking if they were wearing like women's gear specifically to train, because they wear more technical specific wear. So like rash guards, long sleeves, spats are basically leggings with a different material. And they were all wearing men's gear to train, or just like unisex gear, especially the bottoms. They were low-waisted, so they would get pulled down while training. They were see-through because the material is quite thin. And so on men, usually where the waist is maybe smaller, the legs are smaller, etc. With like some women's bodies, it'll stretch more. So that's a huge concern for women. And so there was a lot of like activewear that was either hindering movement or making women feel really self-conscious, and they were just sort of defaulting to clothing that wasn't actually designed for the sport. So you just do leggings, which are heavier and they don't flow as well and things like that.
Right.
Yeah, and so it just really wasn't feeling as though the space had caught up with the amount of women that were in the sport already.
Yeah. I think it's very interesting and very timely, even more so as you launch to a wider audience now, because there's been so many conversations about women athletes clothing and how it's inappropriate and or being expected to wear things that are not helpful to the activities they're actually doing and such. So I feel like it's a really interesting conversation at this time as well, and appreciate that you're doing this. So talk us through so you had this idea to build this company in 2020, as you said, before the world blew up. So what has the last year and a half of your life looked like then in building Wicked Rose?
Oh, it's been good. So when I first started working on the brand, I really wanted to build a business that I would want to buy from. So I worked really hard to like try to find local manufacturers. So all of our clothing is made in Langley, and our shipping materials are recycled and compostable. The poly mailers are made out of corn instead of plastic, and like you plant the clothing tags and they grow wildflowers, which is just fun.
It's amazing.
Yeah, kind of situation, because I didn't want to have to feel bad about what I was putting into the world or conscious about it. And there's still work to be done and things like that, but I've been having a really great time building it. And I've gotten a little bit of pushback as a solo founder, but I've been having an awesome time doing it myself, because like I'm just building what myself and my friends and people that I'm talking to are really missing. And so even though it's been tough over the last like year and a half, and I was finishing up my final year at UBC this past year, and I just graduated, so it was a bit tough to balance that and things.
Yeah.
But I've been having a good time, and I've been fortunate to build some really great support systems around me through like you guys, UBC and stuff like that. So I'm really not doing it alone.
Yeah. Well, this is what I was going to say, because I think the solo founder conversation, that's one that I often hear, like I've said, people have heard me say that I can't imagine being a solo founder, and it seems incredibly daunting. But I know from the very first time that you reached out that you were just saying, I realize I need to build this support network, and I'm looking for all the help that I can possibly get and all the places that I can find it, and even really good at building that for yourself. So I think that's really important, and not something that every entrepreneur does or knows how to do, particularly in the virtual world that we have been in, and building that kind of community, which I know you've also been focusing on for your brand over the past year, is building that community around it, which is really amazing that you've been able to do that. So okay, so you decided to launch, you built your support network, you've been navigating being a solo founder, which you've loved, which is great. And you've been getting support from lots of different corners of the Vancouver startup ecosystem, I know. So I know that you're kind of in the final stages of testing some of your new products, but what has the business side of this look like? Have you had any kind of challenges over the last year, and where is your business at today?
Yeah, so we launched our first products in October 2020. The last release has been late November 2020, and this is a lesson in constantly having samples on the move and on the testing and things like that, because it's been very frustrating how slow and how many iterations it turns out that our stuff has been needed.
Right.
So this certainly won't happen again in the future. But in general, the business has been great. The rebrand just happened, which is a great weight lifted off of my shoulders. It was something I knew that needed to happen for quite a long time. So it's good that that's been finished. But it's going really great, and there's lots of like big dreams for the future, where right now is the research and development, and like we need to lock down the fit and function and material of our more technical wear. They're called spats, the bottoms, rash guards, maybe like Muay Thai shorts, and then we could do seasonal collection drops. And once all of that R&D is done, we don't need to do it again. And so that's exciting.
Right. Yeah, cool. So the rebrand element of it, I know that was a big part of your company story over the last 4 to 6 months, maybe much longer, it sounds like. What has that been like going through a rebrand at this time in your journey? How did you come to Wicked Rose, and what's the story behind that?
Yeah. So I knew that bombshell boxing would probably have to change for quite a while for a multitude of reasons. Boxing's a little bit limiting. People thought that
Right.
it was just clothing for boxing. Victoria's Secret had trademarked the word bombshell. There was a bombshell
Right.
sportswear that we were being confused with sometimes. And so I knew that it needed to change, but I didn't know what to call it. And so I was fortunate for somebody to point out this website called Squad Help, where you could go on and you could host naming competitions, and you were supposed to get 300 to 600 submissions of names on average. I got 3,300 name submissions. It was a lot.
That's
Granted, they were
amazing.
all like slight variations of the same word for a lot of them.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But somebody suggested Wicked Swan and Wildest Rose, and I confused them. And in my head, I was like, "Oh, Wicked Rose sounds cool." And then I realized that wasn't even what was suggested. But I did some research, some research into it, and I was like, I like it because we use tattoo artists for all of our designs.
Right.
And it almost sounds like a tattoo studio, which
Yeah.
is really cool. It's also not
Yeah.
limiting. Yeah, in the way that it doesn't sound like it's not, Wicked Rose Spitewear. It's just Wicked Rose. It's not super gendered. It sounds just kind of badass, as well as like people who have been deemed wicked throughout history are the people who are really like striking out on their own and being a threat to society, and like women who are educated, the wicked witches, etc. And so like possibly the reclamation of the word wicked to be something that's positive. These are the trailblazers in the martial arts space.
I love that so much. I think it's such an important lesson to learn about understanding your brand. And so Volition went through similar. We were called Elevator before we were Volition. Yeah, for a couple of years. And then there turned out to be another elevator consulting company in the community, and there was a little bit of brand confusion. That we were unaware of, and it was completely unintentional, but came to that decision as well of like, do we really want to like continue pushing at like retaining this name? How much does it mean to us? What other avenues could we go through? And also went through the like, what do we call it? And like having all of these conversations. Being a solo founder, at least that you only had yourself to have these conversations with, in a way that's nice. We had three of us who were kind of figuring out that name shift. But I think that's a really, it's a difficult decision, especially when you've just launched. And with yours, like you had a product that you had launched around your name, and making that decision to shift it, it can be a very difficult moment in a company history. But it sounds like you really like took that on and have made something even more meaningful and beautiful, which I think is awesome. And I love, you just mentioned as well that your designs are based on like a very traditional like tattoo artistry. And what was the reason behind that?
I want to say that there's some like deep reason, but honestly, I just really love the tattoo style of artwork.
Yeah.
And it just sort of eventually like fell into the lap where the artist that I ended up working with for our logo, I had 2 logo people to start with, and they were like from Fiverr and the internet, and the logos were just so bad. And so I reached out to a friend who was a tattoo artist in South Carolina, and I was like, oh, he made me a wallet. And I was like, oh, could you maybe make a logo too? And so he ended up making all of our designs in the beginning. And so it just kind of fell into the using the tattoo artists. Yeah. Granted, now it's a great way to like, people love the style of tattoo style, or like tattoo style artwork. I love tattoo style artwork. I have basically no tattoos. So the cool thing about having clothing that has this sort of artwork on it is you can like try on tattoos and take them off afterwards, and you don't have to commit to them for life. But you can have these like really incredible badass tattoos all over you, which is so to me.
That's fantastic. Do you have a product you can show us so we can see what this looks like?
Oh yeah, well absolutely. Oh goodness, I wish our jujitsu stuff was done, but got our little hat.
Awesome.
It's made in Richmond, BC. It's waterproof. This is old. It's got bombshell boxing. Yeah. So these are more of like a little bit of a detailing more so than they are like a really beautiful tattoo artwork. It's the new stuff that has like the really beautiful artwork on it.
Cool. Awesome. I know you just did a photo shoot for Wicked Rose. Can everyone see that? If they head to wickedrose.com, can everyone check out all the new styles and when they're gonna drop and when people can actually order them?
Yeah. So they can definitely check out all the cool new photos on wickedrose.com. The spats and rash guards, the jujitsu stuff, our manufacturer is just making our third iteration of them right now. Apparently she's
Cool.
found the greatest material, and if this doesn't work, nothing will. So fingers crossed, because the other one was kind of see-through and it was pilling and stuff, and you can't put out products that aren't at the top of their game because we want to be
Yeah.
a high quality, you know, brand. So hopefully within the next month and a half, once they're through the testing, we just want to make sure that we're testing them at sizes like extra small right now, but we also
Yeah.
are going to have medium, large, 3XL testers, just to make sure that they're good for everyone, and then they'll be ready to go.
Cool. Awesome. All right. So you mentioned that you were in UBC. So did you come from a background in entrepreneurship, or how did you find your way into this world?
No, I'm just flailing around.
Aren't we
I
all?
got an international relations degree from UBC.
Yeah.
I did not come from a background in entrepreneurship. I admire people who are like, oh, you know, I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I don't know that I say that I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I guess I've done a few entrepreneurial sorts of things, but
Yeah.
Wicked Rose was really the first thing that, it wasn't because I was flailing around looking for a business to build. It was just because I was in the space experiencing the problem, and like our coaches would say, oh, you know, we're going to place an order. What would you all like?
Yeah.
To the girls, and we'd be like, oh, sports, leggings, you know, whatever else, like shorts. And they'd go, yeah, eventually, for sure. And then they just never did. And I was like, I could do that.
Right.
Why don't I do that for some reason? And so as I did more research and I realized that there was nobody doing it, I was like, if I don't do this, someone's going to do it, because this is a serious like hole in the market. So I was like whispering my idea to people. I was like, don't tell anyone, but I'm going to make clothes. Now I'm like a year and a half in. I'm like, you know how much work it is to make clothes? You know how much like time this takes? So nobody steals your idea that quickly, but there are actually 4 others now. We all launched within the last year because everybody was like, oh no, it's a real problem, all at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as I was mentioning, it's timely. It's something that people are talking about, which is really, really interesting. Okay, so you came into it. I honestly though, like what you just talked about, when you're just like living something and you are feeling that pain point and you're like, hey, I'm experiencing this problem. Is anybody else? Oh yeah, there's a bunch of other people. I should maybe do something about this. That's like a very typical a route to entrepreneurship. There aren't like that many people I talk to who are like, I started out wanting to be an entrepreneur. It's often like they were in some sort of an industry or field. And I love these stories, like you were just living your life and doing the thing you love to do, and then you were like, there's something here that's not quite working. Like that's actually a fantastic route to entrepreneurship, I think, because you already know that there's a need for what you're building. Like you're building out of a need rather than, as you said, like trying to find something to build. Sometimes you end up then having problems with product market fit and like figuring out if people will actually buy the thing that you're creating. So I think it's really cool the way that you did this. And I'd love to know for your entrepreneurial peers out there, whether they were like you and they were just living their life and realized there was this need, or they were maybe um, maybe they always knew they wanted to be entrepreneurs. I don't know. But for your entrepreneurial peers out there who are maybe just starting out, do you have any particular words of wisdom for them, or tips or lessons learned?
Yeah. Well, one thing I think that I think about a lot right now is just that like I'm so fortunate to be so passionate about this, and that if I or you or we or anybody is gonna pursue a venture, I would definitely say find something that you're like super passionate about, because there are a lot of like really high highs and there are also some lows, but like it helps when it's something that you really love, because it can sometimes be a slow burn to get things off the ground, or something can be tough, and if you can fall back on like a passion for it and a love of what you're doing, then I think that would really carry you through. That's a big thing. Also, I didn't realize that solo founders were so few and far between until like September. Like I started working on it in March, and then in September I joined the League of Innovators, and I was like, oh, there's like 4 of us out of 35 ventures. That's kind of weird. And then I got to UBC and I got some flack for it. But like, if you have an idea and you have a passion for it, and there's a problem, just go solve it yourself. You don't have to like play, you know, people tell you that you need a co-founder, etc. But like Spanx, Nix, Smart Suites, like Craigslist. But Kara Bosch she started Smart Suites at 23 at UBC in her 3rd year, dropped out, just sold it solo, just sold it for $360 million. Like, you can do it by yourself. Even if people tell you you can't, even if it's harder. If you don't have anybody else who wants to do it with you, or you just don't want to do it with anybody else, just go do it. Like, this is, I'm having a good time. Like, you know, use me as a little,
That's awesome.
A little person to build off of. Like, you can do it.
Cool. Awesome. I like that. I think, like, as I mentioned before, as a solo founder, though, like finding that support network is really, really important. And I like the solo founders I talk to that are struggling are more so ones that are a bit more isolated. And I know that you went, as you mentioned, you went through League of Innovators and you went through UBC and had that support network. And then of course you also were very good at reaching out to us at Volition. And I'm sure you reached out to many other people just saying like, I'm really early stage, but you should work with me in some way. Like that's rare to see that as much. And I think that's a really important ingredient as to why you have found it to be a fairly smooth. I mean, with, as you mentioned, ups and downs and all the things that happen, but I mean, it sounds like you've really thrived in that solopreneur kind of space. But I would venture to guess probably having that support network has been very useful. Probably.
Very true. Build like massive support networks around yourself, because, you know, even if you're a solo founder, you're not really doing it alone. And if you're doing it alone, yeah, you'll probably have an absolutely atrocious time and not get very far.
Yeah.
And maybe try to find industry experts within your space if possible. So you build these support networks around you, and then there's ways to get introductions to people who, like, I have a couple mentors who have been at like one who was at Nike and Adidas for 20 years, one who's at Nike right now. And so, I mean, these are big names that are ahead of where I'm at anyways, but it's always good to get insight from people who have done it before, especially as like I'm a first-time founder and don't have experience in the apparel space. So definitely do reach out and build support networks as well.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic advice. It's something that at pitch events, when we see someone come up, not just as a solo founder, even just as a small founding team that don't have expertise in the area that they're in, that we immediately say, how are you learning about this? Especially if you don't come from a business background, but more so if you just don't have industry experience in the area that you're doing things in, where are you getting that kind of intel from? So I think that you've done this in such a brilliant way, and even just talking about it early, even if you were just whispering, like, that's something that, you know, I ask this question every week of entrepreneurs, and often I hear one of the advice coming back is to talk about what you're building. Just get it out there, talk about it, because there's so many people who are willing to help and be a part of that network and that community of yours. So I think you've done this in such a great way, and you've listened to your customers, and you've, you know, built a solid community within the martial arts space as well. I'm sure that you already have had that, and I know some people in your community that are great supporters of yours. So, and you have some incredible ambassadors. So I think I think it's a great example of how to build a product like yours and a brand like yours for those who are out there and wondering. So, is there anything that we haven't had a chance to touch on today? Actually, no. I'm gonna shelve that question for just a moment. So what I wanted to ask at this point is, we've now learned a bit more about where Wicked Rose came from, about your background and how you got into it, what this first year and a half has looked like, some of the challenges, but also some of the incredible experiences you've had as a solo founder and building this brand. For those who have just joined, I see some of you. Hello. We're going to have this on IGTV. Yes, IGTV, that's the one. And on YouTube later, you can go back and learn more. But what I wanted to ask, speaking of community and support networks, Christina, is what can we do as your community to support you here today. So what is your ask of us?
Yeah. So I built this like really wonderful community of like 730 people on Instagram that I love all of them. So if anybody wanted to go over and check out our Instagram page, maybe join our little community. Check out our website. We do have 2 products on sale right now. We have our hat and our crop top. Especially the crop top is very much just for working out. Like, it doesn't have to be specifically for martial arts. It's a wonderful shirt. And just keep an eye on our new products that are coming up that I'm like wildly excited about and itching to get like going. So,
Cool. And where do you currently ship to?
Anywhere.
Okay, anywhere. All right.
We just got our first US order a couple weeks ago. It's actually cheaper.
Congratulations.
To Canada. So like,
cool. All right. So anywhere.
Yeah, right.
I love it. All right. So head over to @WickedRose on Instagram or wickedrose.com to check out and support Christina and the Wicked Rose team. Are you still a team of one?
I am still a team of one. The Instagram is @wickedrose.ca. Hopefully one day we'll get Wicked Rose if we can trademark and then maybe just like steal it. But yeah, or any questions to potentially people like gym owners, or if anybody just wants to chat about their training or anything, just reach out because I love talking to people.
Fantastic. So what's the best, is it if someone wants to connect with you directly, would the best place be on Instagram messaging, or where else can people connect with you one-on-one?
Honestly, I would say Instagram messaging, just the @wickedrose.ca. Alternatively, they could email me at like Christina@wickedrose.com. hello@wickedrose.com. It's a team of one, so I answer everything. So it doesn't matter where you send it because it's
that makes it easier. That's fantastic. All right. So is there anything that we didn't have a chance to talk about today that you'd wanted to touch on?
No, I don't think so. There was one, but it's slipped my mind now. But no, I had a great time talking to you, and like it's always so fun talking about my business, and you've been so awesome to talk to. It's been so easy to just like flow back and forth.
Oh, excellent. Well, it's really interesting learning about everything you're doing, and I've been following your journey for a while, and I think it's very needed. Not even being in the martial arts space myself, it's something that I've struggled with, finding exercise clothes. I know there's lots of options, but somehow none of them quite are for everyone, you know?
Yeah.
It's tricky. And I imagine in the martial arts space that there's like, as you were talking about, like there's very specific things that are needed and that help with your performance and agility and all the things. So I think it's very interesting what you're doing, and I'm excited to hear what comes in the future for Wicked Rose. I think you mentioned a little bit about your a little bit of your vision for Wicked Rose, but if we could just end on what is that vision? If we were to look into the crystal ball for 5 years from now, what does that look like?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I want to become the go-to brand for women in martial arts globally, and I want them to be able to come to Wicked Rose and know that what they're buying is really high quality. It's going to perform properly. Borderline, like, you have these beautiful designs that you want to show off, but it's clothing that you don't even have to think about while you're wearing it, because you're training and it's so seamless and it's so flowy and you don't feel it, that it's not distracting you. It's not hindering your movement at all. Hopefully we're planning to move up to like size 5XL in 2022.
Cool.
Everybody right now, is ourselves included, just going up to 2XL, and martial arts has just like ridiculous variety of people and bodies and etc., and like nobody is properly serving so many people, and I want everyone to be able to just feel really powerful and comfortable and strong in our clothing. So that's sort of like the ideal, is to build this wonderful little team and to have this like brand that is the go-to brand for women, and they know that they can come here and potentially move to unisex as well, just so that we can fit all the people, but we'll see.
I love it. Cool. Yeah. And I love that, like Wicked Rose, as you said, it's genderless. It's, you know, it's such an empowering, you can get to lots of different, or you can expand in different ways. And I see Barsha's on here saying that's awesome. It is awesome. I'm very excited about it. Cool. We'll watch out for your vision. I'm excited to see that coming down the line. So as a last question, the last question, one thing I always like to ask is, what is one thing that brings you joy right now?
I've just gotten back to my Muay Thai gym and after quite a while, especially with the shutdowns and everything. So that's definitely bringing me joy, getting back to doing the thing
Cool.
that I love and feeling as if I'm like back in the community because my community has been training for so long and I just haven't been training along with them, which makes me kind of sad. So I'm very happy to be back in
Cool.
and to be able to do athletic things again.
Fantastic. Alrighty. Well, for those who just joined us, so everyone here knows this interview will be live on IGTV and on YouTube. You can also see all of our previous conversations with founders like Christina, who have been doing really incredible things. Some for 6 months, some for I don't know how 8 years, 8 or 9 years. There's a huge breadth on there, lots of incredible advice. Really do encourage everyone to go check it out. I will be back next week on September 14th talking to Spencer Kerber, who's the founder at Bessie. And Bessie is a company redefining you know them?
I'm gonna watch that. Yeah,
Oh,
Bessie.
fantastic. Yes.
I haven't bought their stuff, but like they're my inspiration, sort of. They're great.
Oh, that's
Well, not
fantastic. All
literally,
right.
but like they're awesome. I think they're so cool.
Yeah. They've got great branding and such, and great stories. So everyone else knows, they're redefining the digital grocery experience, bringing local, natural meat and fish from the farm to your plate. So their little motto is "Eat healthier on a budget while supporting local farmers and fisheries."
They sound
So,
cool too. I was thinking of the shoes.
oh,
The water.
I was like, this is very different from what you're doing, but that's neat.
No, but I'll still watch and I'll still be excited to see those guys.
Yeah, they're fantastic. They really do a beautiful branding and they have a great story. And both of the I guess the founder and I don't know who else is on the team, they've pitched our events and so they're kind of growing their team and doing lots of really cool stuff. So I do recommend everyone to come check that out, but it will also be on IGTV and YouTube as well. So thank you everyone so much for joining, and thank you, Christina, for coming here and sharing your story with us today, sharing some of your tips that you've learned along the way. I'm sure we will have you back again. We'll have to check in with you again and have you come provide an update about your company in the future. So thank you so much.
Thank you for all the support and for chatting with me, and thank you everyone for swinging in.
Awesome. Okay, bye everyone.
Have a good day.